Hello everyone, and welcome to another tutorial. I've received requests on how to manually configure Debian with a network installation, logical volumes, snapshots, and rollbacks. As some of you may already know, I've been using the Btrfs file system in previous videos for snapshotting. How about doing the same with the ext4 file system, often the default for modern Linux distros? We'll explore all these topics using Debian 12 Bookworm as a testing platform right after this. For this video, I've downloaded the alpha test of the Debian net install ISO, link in the description below. Let's boot it and get started. Here I'll boot from device 2, the install ISO for Debian Bookworm, and I'll select the text mode installer to make, hopefully, the next screens more legible for you. So the language will be English, and for my location, I'll select the United States. And for the keyboard, key map, I will use American English today. So it loads additional components. And now it's configuring the DHCP network auto configuration. Looks like that was successful. For the host name, I'll use dworm for Debian Bookworm, dworm as the host name. The domain name I'll leave blank since this is a standalone test VM, standalone workstation. So for the password for root, I'll leave this blank because I want the root account disabled for maximum security. And the user that I'll create next will be sudo. So I'll just enter a blank password for root and have it disabled. So full name for a new user is Steven. Username for the account is Steven again. I'll enter my password and enter it one more time to verify. Good. So it syncs the network time with the NTP, and the time zone I am is Pacific in the United States. Okay, let's do the manual partitioning today. As promised, select manual here instead of guided, because I want a very simple setup for LVM, logical volume management. So the virtual disk 1 is our target drive for system installation. So I'll select that, hit enter. Create new empty partition table on this device. I'll say yes. Be very careful here that you don't overwrite, say, Windows or something like that. Okay, so let's select free space here and create our first partition, our new partition. And the new partition size, this will be the boot partition, will be 600 megabytes. So let's put in 600 MB. It'll be a primary partition at the beginning of the drive. And use as, it will not be ext4, but Debian recommends ext2 by default as the file system for the boot partition. Mount point will be boot, static files for boot. All right, so we're done setting up the first partition. There we go. So for the rest of the free space, let's set this up for logical volume management, or LVM. So we'll create a new physical partition, and that'll be the rest of the drive, 68.1 gigs, I think it's what it says. That'll be primary, not logical. We'll do that next. And for instead of ext4, I'll be using this as a physical volume, this second partition as a physical volume for the logical volume management, or LVM. So we're done setting up this partition. So now that we have an LVM set up for the second partition, we now can configure the logical volume manager. So I'll select that. But before we can do that, it wants to write the changes we've done so far to the disk, where we can configure LVM. Okay, that's done. So we've got one physical volume that's free to configure. So let's create our volume group for DWorm. So the volume group name, it's again for the entire second partition, shall be DWorm-VG, or DWorm volume group. White on blue is not very visible, sorry guys, but that's the defaults for the net installer. So the second physical partition will be the host for the new volume group. So once that's done, let's set up some logical volumes. So we create two logical volumes. The first one on volume group dworm-vg shall be root. That'll be our root logical volume. Logical volume size for root, for today, for our demonstration, I'll select 16 gigabytes, again, for our root logical volume. And there we go. Let's create another logical volume. And this time, let's make it our home logical volume on volume group dworm-vg. Logical volume name shall be home. And the logical volume size shall be 32 gigabytes. So now we have two logical volumes defined within the single volume group on the single physical partition. So this is the summary of the current LVM configuration. Looks good. All right, so we'll continue. And we can select Finish here. All right, so we have to set the mount points now for our two logical volumes. So the first one here apparently is home, so we'll just hit Enter. And use as. So we'll use the standard ext4 file system, and the mount point for the home volume group shall be /home for our home directories. So we're done setting up this logical partition. And we've got the one more logical volume to configure, which is the root volume. So we'll use, as before, ext4, and the mount point shall be / for the root file system. And looks like we're done setting up this partition. So now we have mount points for everything here. So first partition is the /boot. Second partition hosts our LVM with our two logical volumes. Finish. So we haven't assigned a swap partition. I don't like doing that on SSDs. I prefer compressed Zram swap instead. So we'll do that after, when we have the system installed. So I will not return to the partitioning menu and select No here. We don't want a swap partition. Okay, so here we the summary. Looks good. So we'll write the changes to the disk. So we'll select Yes here. Okay, very good. So now we have to be patient because it takes a while to download from the network. So we need to install the base system. And here we go. Shall we scan extra installation media? We don't have any, so we'll select No here. All right, so let's configure the mirror. So I'm in the United States, in the bottom here, so I will select United States as the archive mirror country. And for me, at my location, which is the Pacific Northwest of the United States, the Oregon State University's open source lab is the best mirror. It's the fastest with the lowest latency. So I'll select that. No HTTP proxy information, blank for none. So we'll scan OSU mirror to configure the apt. And so we're retrieving some files here and getting ready for the installation configuration for deselect. Debian select. Okay, shall we opt in on participating on the package uses survey? I'll say no here. Speed things up a little bit. Okay, so here's deselect. We'll unselect GNOME. Yeah, white on blue is not visible. I'll select KDE Plasma here because I want to check out the latest KDE LTS release. And that's it in the standard system utilities. Now we'll just hit enter and we're off to the races. So this pulls down all the packages from the network, the mirror from OSU, and yeah, this will take some time depending on your network speed. So I will edit this video and skip over the most boring parts. So after downloading it, installs and configures, and it's done through the magic of video editing. So install the Grub bootloader. Be very careful. That's why I only suggest playing and testing on virtual machines and not real hardware, especially if it has Windows already installed. You can wipe out your Windows partition if you do this, if you're not careful. But we don't do that, so we'll install the Grub loader as a sole OS on dev VDA, which is our only drive that we're setting up today. So once Grub is installed, it installs the QEMU guest agent, because we're running QEMU KVM as the hypervisor today. And we're ready to reboot. All done. So we'll select continue, and it reboots. So this time we'll select option 1, which is the VirtIO disk. It's our hard drive. And there we go. GNU Grub is working. Loading Linux kernel 6.1, which is an LTS release. So here we go. And it's asking for a password. This is SDDM, Simple Display Manager. It's choosing the Plasma Wayland session today. So Wayland is fully enabled. Here we go. KDE. KDED job failed. We'll just ignore that. That utility sometimes fails on first login. We pay it no, never mind. All right, for quick settings, sorry guys, but my eyes require the dark theme. And clicking file selects them. That's what I like as the default behavior. Cool. Let's turn off the screensavers and auto lock. We're demonstrating today. So auto lock is disabled, and also select energy saving, and we'll turn off screen energy saving to make sure this doesn't turn off on us while I'm showing you things. All right, cool. KDE Plasma is so nice, but you can get lost in all the options. Still learning many of them. Okay, let's click the application manager or applications here, menu, and let's drag the console app to the taskbar or quick launch. And there's Firefox is already installed by default. Looks like, let's check. I think this is the extended service release. Yes, 102.8 ESR. So that's what Debian goes for. Very conservative. Probably a good idea for long-term stability and support. So let's launch the console. Let's make this bigger font for you guys and go to full screen. So first things first, as always, let's become root with sudo-s. As you can see, sudo is working automatically. Stephen is the part of the sudoer group. Let's do an apt update. Let's make sure all our packages are up to date, and indeed they are. Okay, so next, I want to show you a little trick here. Let's apt install net select -apt and hit enter here. what this allows us to do is automatically select the fastest mirrors that are closest to us as well. Very handy to have this utility, because what we can do is we can do net select -apt, and -c for country will be US, -n will enable the non-free repositories, and we'll do the mirrors for Bookworm. We'll hit enter, and what it does is it goes through all the mirror lists and finds the fastest mirror. So I thought I'd show that to you guys. It can come in very handy going forward in your Debian adventures. So as you can see, only found 7 out of 10 requested. So it already selected the Oregon State University Open Source Lab as the fastest mirror. So it's writing the sources.list configuration file for us. So let's take a look and see what it did with cat etc apt sources.list. And if you look here, so that's the official alpha net install. Non-free firmware is still commented out because we're still in testing. So we've got Bookworm for both the debs and deb source. And also from the main Debian site, the security updates, should we need them, for Bookworm. So yeah, pretty cool. So this is a pretty good configuration to start with. So I thought I'd show this to you guys, just in case you weren't aware of it already. Moving right along. Next, let's apt update, since we've reconfigured our apt with a sources list. And of course, we're still up to date. And next, let's do apt install systemd Zram -generator. Remember, we don't have swap space configured on our SSD. We want Zram swap instead. So this package takes care of that for us. So all we have to do once this is installed is do a systemctl daemon-reload to let the system know about the new service. And then we'll start with systemctl start /dev/zram0, which is the default device configured for our compressed Zram swap. So let's do a free-h. As you can see, we now have swap. It's not a partition on disk. It's a region in RAM that's compressed and is very fast, faster than disk in my opinion, and probably also safer because the swap gets wiped on every reboot. Okay, moving right along. Let's take a look at the file system table. As you can see, we're swap free here from the disk. We've got the root logical volume mounted on slash with as ext4. Same thing for home. Logical volume mounted on /home. Pretty much default options. And here's our ext2 boot partition for our static boot files when we boot from grub. Okay, nothing unusual here. CD-ROM is there, even though we don't have a CD-ROM drive. I haven't had a CD-ROM drive in a long time. Let's check etc OS release. As you can see, we're running Bookworm, Debian Bookworm. We have SID here, /SID, shown because we're still in testing. Presumably that SID will go away once Bookworm is actually released in a few months from now. Okay. Now let's do an apt install neofetch. I know some of you guys like to see what neofetch looks like, so I'm gonna get out of root so that neofetch can show us more things. So I'll type neofetch, and here you go. Running Bookworm SID. Kernel is 6.1.0, which is the LTS release of the Linux kernel. That's very good to know that Bookworm will come with the LTS release, and also the LTS Plasma release, 5.27. That's the last, I think, Plasma 5 release. I think Plasma 6 is next. Correct me in the comments below if you disagree. All right, so uname-a shows us we're actually running kernel 6.1.12, and which was compiled for Debian Bookworm on February 15th of this year, 2023. So we're dating this video. Very good. I like what I'm seeing here. Moving right along, let's do a sudo apt install Linus and check the default out-of-the-box hardening for the system. Linus utility is very handy. So let's do it. Let's do a sudo Linus, and we'll audit the host system. And we'll hit return, and that'll analyze the system as root user. Let's see how good our hardening is. Let's scroll up here a little bit. Okay, so Linus security scan details. Hardening index is 63, which is yellow or orange. It's okay, it's not bad, but it can be better. And what I like about Linus and its security testing is it gives us a bunch of suggestions, so 40 in this case, a bunch of suggestions on how to further harden the system. So I won't do this here in this video. This video will be long enough as it is, but that's something you may want to be aware of if security and system hardening is important to you. Tumbleweed, for example, has out-of-the-box index in the 80s. It's much more secure out of the box. Just thought I'd point that out. So next, let's sudo apt install plasma -discover -backend -flatpak, because I'd like to enable flatpaks for further testing for the Discover utility in the App Manager. So once that's done, what we can do is, let's minimize this console here. So we can go to KDE Discover. I find this very handy for installing my Flatpaks, which is my current app preference. We're up to date, of course. Under settings, what I'd like to do is on the top right here, we'd like to add the FlatHub source for flathub.org repository. So I enter my password to become root. And we're standing by. This is adding the source, the FlatHub source. And standing by. There it is. So here you can see the central repository of Flatpak applications, dl.flathub.org, is available and activated. So to make all this work, let me log out quickly and log back in again. Notice we haven't rebooted the system once. Post install, of course. So here we go. We've got the a nice new desktop background. So no errors down here. Very good. Let's launch the Discover Center again. App Center. All right. So I'm going to select Applications. And let me look for a handy tool that I found recently called the System Monitoring Center. It's very popular. It's very awesome, I think. You may like it too. It's got 17 5-star ratings, give or take. It's a Flatpak, so let's install it from flathub.org. Okay, so it's installed. I can tell because it offers it to remove it. We won't do that. We'll use it instead. So let me go ahead and close Discover. So we're done with Discover for now. System Monitoring Center is right there. If you search for system. All right, so we've got a couple percent CPU, 20% RAM usage. Very handy, very graphical. Hopefully this view is useful to you guys. So that's CPU. Memory. If I select memory here, you can see we've got 1.5 gigs, 20% RAM used, 6.2 gigs available. Nothing's on the swap. Very good. So under disk, we've got disk activity here and disk usage. Take a look, we've got 26% of VDA1 used and nothing of VDA2. Processes, we have 187 processes out of the box for Debian Bookworm. Pretty typical for your Linux distribution. Users, we have just one user configured, Steven. Services installed are 150. So I'm going to scroll through this. You can pause as you see fit as to which are active and inactive, enabled, disabled, etc. Nothing unusual that I can find here. So scroll through here. A lot of systemd services, of course. Policy kit, etc., etc. Sound, hardware, a lot of things here. Okay, so for the system, running Debian GNU Linux, yeah, it's on a QEMU KVM. The kernel version is 6.1.12. Running Plasma Shell 5.27. Again, that's the LTS version of Plasma 5. Wayland, Display Manager's SDDM. Packages, we have 1,963 packages with the default deselect choices we made during installation. 6 Flatpaks. The GTK version is 4.8.3, and Python is 3.10.6, which is a little earlier version than I expected. Let me do a Flatpak list. So here are 6 Flatpaks, right, including the System Monitoring Center, which we expressly installed, which pulled in the other 5 Flatpaks for support and shared utilities. Python is not found. Python 3. Yeah, Python 3 is version 3.11.2, built on February 12th, 2023, with GCC 12.2. So that's fairly recent for Debian pre-release. GCC version is not available because GCC is not installed. That's a separate topic for another video. All right. So there we go. That's our current system state. So next, let's sudo VGS. Let's take a look at our volume groups. So we have one volume group defined here on one physical volume, which is our second partition on our VDA physical disk. We have 18 gigs and change free for additional volumes, and I did that on purpose to make room for snapshots, for snapshot volumes. So let's do that. Let's make a snapshot here. So the logical volumes are home and root. The volume group, they're both part of the dworm-vg volume group. And just as a refresher as to how our system is configured. So let's sudo the physical volume display -v -m And as you can see, here's our physical volume. Like I said, the second partition on dev VDA. Volume group is dworm-vg. We've got free physical extents that we can use for our snapshots. Snapshot volumes, so special volumes of type snapshot. Okay, so cool. Those are our physical segments down below. Everything looks as expected. So let's create a snapshot before we do any updates or installations to make sure we can always roll back should something go wrong during said update or installations. So let's list what's in the dev mapper directory. We've got our two logical volumes, home and root. We'd like to snapshot root before we change anything on the system. dworm-vg-root. Okay, so how do we do that? We can do that very simply by doing a sudo logical volume create -L, so it's of size 1 gigs, that's plenty for our updates or installations, -S, so of type snapshot, -N will name the snapshot volume, dworm-root -pre-install if you want to install some programs, or pre-update, say if you want to do a system update, because we want to be able to roll back if something goes wrong. So we're doing an install of some stuff, so pre-install, and the volume to snapshot is dev mapper dworm-vg-root. All right, it's this one. So we'll create a snapshot of 1 gig size from this logical volume. So that creates a new logical volume, right? If we do a sudo VGS, or LVS, sorry, not volume group, but logical volumes, there's our new logical volume. Again, all of these three logical volumes are in volume group dworm-vg. And the origin for dworm root pre-install is root, right? Because we made a snapshot of root. So let's install some stuff. Let's install some quick packages here. apt install htop and duf. Handy utilities. You may like them too. Okay, so htop is working. Pretty cool. So we've got 1 gigs used here. Pretty idle CPUs. Got 4 CPU cores assigned to this virtual machine. duf shows only the mounted volumes here. You can see //boot/home, or root, boot, and home. The snapshot logical volume is not mounted, so it doesn't show up in doof. But here you go. This is how much the system uses on a fresh install. This information may be handy to you. Okay, cool. Now, if all is okay, what you can do is you can just, after testing and everything, is you can remove your snapshot with sudo lv remove /dev /dworm-vg /dworm-root pre-install, which is what we named our snapshot. And that you can just hit enter. And again, if you're happy with the system and you're happy with the update or the package install, you'll select yes here. But let's pretend that we broke our system just now. So we'll select no here. If broken, we'll select no, because we want to use the snapshot. So the logical volume is not removed for the snapshot. So let's pretend we need to roll back. So let's do that now. So for rollbacks, all you need to do is sudo lv convert and then -- merge. We want to merge the snapshot into the root default snapshot. So /dev /dworm -vg /dworm -root -preinstall. And that's it. So we just hit enter, and that will roll back the root logical volume. So it says delaying merge since origin is open because we have it currently mounted, right? So merging of snapshot will occur on next activation of the root mounting, which happens when we reboot, or when it boots. So we'll have to do our reboot now. So sudo lvs, as you can see, once we merge, it automatically gets rid of the pre-install snapshot. So we just have the home and root logical volumes left. So let's go ahead and reboot. So once it's rebooted, standing by for that, we'll select option 1 here for the boot device. And here we go. Boots pretty fast, actually. Here we go. Log in. So we supposedly rolled back. Let's see if our 2 little utilities are still available. So in order to find that out, let me launch console. Let's make the font size bigger for legibility and accessibility. htop, command not found. Doof, command not found. So it looks like we have indeed rolled back. Rollback has been successful. So that's how you do it with ext4 file systems and logical volume management. Of course, this is a big topic, and I can talk about this in some other video. Supposing you want Ubuntu. Okay, you're on Debian, but you need Ubuntu somehow without having to install Ubuntu. Well, it's very easy. All you do is type sudo apt install distrobox for your container management and Podman. Why Podman? Because you can run Podman as a rootless container, and you can play around with your container sandboxes without affecting the rest of your system. So distrobox is installed. Let me show how easy that is. Again, Podman is automatically installed and configured. It's kind of Red Hat's answer to rootless containerization. So all you just type is distrobox-create --name Ubuntu LTS, and we'll use the image Ubuntu :22.04, which is the latest LTS image. Now I'll pull from Docker. Running Podman here, not Docker, because Docker would require us to configure a service and a daemon and all that stuff. Podman is much simpler and safer, in my opinion, for this kind of sandboxing. So distrobox, enter Ubuntu LTS. Just do that. It just configures the container for the first time. Install some basic packages, etc., etc. Container setup complete. So this is what it has done. Very nice. And you have access to your home directory here, so you can configure a separate home directory if you need, etc., etc. I just want to give you a quick demonstration. Cat OS release shows we're running 22.04.2 LTS, the latest jammy jellyfish, and the ID is Ubuntu, ID like is Debian. So we just do a sudo apt update. So it looks like our containers are already up to date. Isn't distrobox neat? I think it's pretty cool. So let's do a sudo apt install neofetch. So let's run neofetch inside our Ubuntu LTS container. We'll let that happen here. So it pulls in a bunch of packages. As you can see, it has no problem doing that. And it's not too slow either. So what Podman does is allows you to use your existing host kernel, but sandbox your different user lands. It's very interesting. Maybe I'll do a Distrobox specific video one day. All right, so neofetch. Neofetch shows we are running Ubuntu 22.04.2, but our kernel is shared with the host, so you have full performance, right? So kernel 610-5, uname-o shows we're still running our DWorm kernel 6112 from Debian, compiled on February 15th. So it's the host kernel. So you're just changing the user land, you're sandboxing an Ubuntu user land for your use. And comes in very handy. So hopefully this might give you some ideas on how to configure your own Debian installation. I'm pretty excited and really looking forward to Debian 12 Bookworm with the LTS kernel and LTS Plasma desktop. It's still a few months away, and I'll probably revisit when it gets released. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and smash the like button if you feel like it. Until next time, have a lot of fun and take care.